Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café, and today I have with me Kate Kunkel, and she is a vegan nutritionist, health coach, and also a harp therapist, a Reiki master, and a mindfulness practitioner. And her focus is really helping people with to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's with music, mind, and matter. And I just, I'm really excited, especially about the harp.
But I do a list.
Yes. Oh, I'm gonna, somewhere in there, we're gonna take a music break.
My pleasure.
So yeah, so that's quite an intro. How did you come across? I want to focus on the music piece, and that may not be where your journey started. So I'll change my mind. Let's. How did you decide to therapist or to help people? Where did that start in your life process?
Yeah. So the harp. Is it okay if because why I began the harp was really what led me to everything. I had a very stressful life in Hollywood and Palm Springs, California. And there was a night when I came home from one of the bazillion meetings I had to attend all the time. And I was feeling particularly sorry for myself. I was working too hard and nobody cared and nobody loved me anymore. So, but it was very serious. And I was driving across this wash. The washes there are very deep. And there was a bridge over there. And just for a millisecond, a nanosecond, I thought I could just drive off this bridge and that would be the end of it. And of course I shook myself out of it and I went home and I thought, ooh, I really need some help here. So I cried myself to sleep. But as I was crying myself to sleep, I put my energy out there and said, if there's anybody out there, please, I need some help. I'm really not very happy. And I know this isn't what I'm supposed to do with my life. Went to sleep. And while I was sleeping that night, I had this dream. In this dream, I was playing a harp. I'd never seen a harp in my life in person, only on television, Harpa Marx and old movies. But I was playing this harp and my heart was full and my soul was at peace in the dream. When I woke up, I said to my husband, okay, I got to get a harp. Bless his dear heart. He said, okay. So we found a harp. It took a little while to find one that was reasonably priced because I didn't know about these harps back then. Everybody thinks of the harps, the big fancy ones with the gilding and everything. And that is what I did play in the dream. But it took a while and I found it. 1 year later, after we got my hands on that first little harp, we closed our business, shut everything down in California, and moved to Las Vegas. And the year after that, we began playing as a harp and guitar duo in the Excalibur Hotel, which was quite the thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky. I got to play some amazing gigs, one of which was an engagement party. And this is where the whole healing thing comes in. At this engagement party, this couple sat and watched me the whole night. And the man's name was Steve. And they loved all the old music. Then about 6 months later, I get a call from the lady whose engagement party we played for. She said, do you remember that couple? Blah, blah. Yes, of course. Turned out Steve was very sick with cancer and there was nothing anybody could do. It was no treatment. But his wife said to him, what can I do for you? And he said, I'd love to hear that little girl on the harp again. So of course that was me. So I schlepped all the way from the north of Las Vegas, all the way out to Henderson after work. And I get there to the house and the whole family's there waiting. He's on his bed in the living room. And I went in and I held his hand and I said, hi, Steve, it's Kate. I'm here to play for you. And he wasn't really, coherent, but I felt a tiny little pressure on my hand. And I played for him, and something miraculous happened. His energy somehow came into me, and we played the harp together. I always say it's like it was his music, my hands were just the vehicle. And wow, he passed away while I was playing. And when he was gone, I always get choked up because it was such an incredible experience. When he was gone, the music left. It was gone. No more of that music came from my fingers. So I just played something like Amazing Grace or something, I don't even remember what it was, for the family. And then I left. And I sat out in my car and cried for a long time. And that was the beginning of the healing work, because I figured, wow, there has to be something there. That's the reason I was given that dream. That's the reason I played for that party. Everything came to this, that I was supposed to use that gift of the harp for healing. And everything since then, everything has come because of that.
Wow. That's quite the story. Oh my goodness. Wow.
And I always feel like if I go away from it, and I did for a few years, I did other things. I hosted a TV show. I did some other things. But whenever I go away from it, my heart is empty. My heart feels empty.
Wow. It's so fascinating to me how you're describing that it's his music played through your hands, and it's interesting because one of the works I do it's a physical therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with bone therapy.
Yes.
But there's set moves that one can do, and then there is a connection that changes everything. It's very so I relate to what you're saying, and that's why I've been so thrilled to have an opportunity to ask you a million questions and really deeply understand that the power of sound, in healing. That's one piece. The other piece is the interconnectedness of sound itself. And could you speak a little bit about that more?
Oh, yes.
Or a lot more about it.
Yeah. Well, I really feel, because everything's vibrating all the time. Yes. We're all vibrating. This harp, this mic, everything is vibrating. And that frequency connects all of us all the time. Yes. And if we interject a tone, even a tuning fork, this note down here, I mean, that you can feel that, you can hear it where we are thousands of miles apart, but that's traveling. It's even outside of the microphone, it's traveling, right? It's out there in the universe. And so I really feel that every time you express, and it works with words too, yeah? Whatever we express, that sound, that frequency, it's all going to connect, and we are connected. I think that is to me anyway, it's the easiest way for me to connect with energy. When I do Reiki work, I have to have my music, and I usually start my Reiki sessions with a little harp music, just to get the client and myself in that beautiful healing zone. And that's the beginning of it, because it just sets everything up, that vibration of healing and connectedness, because we're all just vibrating at whatever. And if we can connect and get into a nice sine wave, and that's what vibroacoustic therapy is all about, is getting into that nice wave together.
So can you share, again, no names, nothing like that, but stories of what you've seen possible with people that you've been able to help?
Sure. There have been a couple. The first one, shortly after my experience with Steve, I started really examining what the harp could do for many things. And I learned that this Dr. Ron Price, who was a professor of music, he had severe Parkinson's, and he was not able to play his trumpet anymore. First it was the walk, the gait was problematic, and then, other things, it declines. And it got to be so he couldn't play his trumpet anymore. That was his instrument. So somebody suggested to him, why don't you take up the harp? I hear that it helps. And he did. And he reversed his symptoms to a large extent. So I read about him. And one of the people we worked with at Excalibur, his wife had MS. And she was very young. At the time, she was probably only about 42, 43. And she was already in a wheelchair. And she was not able to write her name even anymore. So as a an experiment, I said to her husband, let's get her a little harp that we can put in the wheelchair. She can hold in the wheelchair and see if we can't work to reverse. If it worked for Dr. Price, surely to goodness it can work for other people. So we did that. Twice a week, I'd go over to their house. And at first, all I was doing was basically guiding her hand on like a, just to do glisses kind of on the harp. But I'd always get it right against her body because it's all about the vibration, yeah? So you want to have that frequency, that vibration. So we did that, and pretty soon I could get her to pluck with one finger, and then we could get to do 2 fingers, and then I was able to get her to do 2 hands with 1 finger, and eventually she was able to type again. That was kind of our goal, was so that she could write, because she was a writer. So she could write again. And so we worked and got so that now he only had 1 contract with us at Excalibur, which was only 6 months. So I only got to work with her for about 5 months, but I truly believe, and I know they took the harp with them. I don't know what happened after that, but in that time, from not even being able to write her hand, she was able to pick out simple little tunes, and she could type again on the computer. So she could regain some creativity and express herself again, which was really pretty cool. And it was a great way to start my experiment in the healing power of music.
Definitely, yeah. It's interesting, huh? It's, I've had some experience with it too, which is why, and not anything professional whatsoever. When I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I found I did complementary things because I chose not to do a hysterectomy or chemotherapy or anything invasive. And I did a lot of internal work, why I got there. But something that came to me absolutely naturally, I just couldn't help it. But for the first 48 hours after getting the actual diagnosis, because I didn't know something was wrong. I couldn't tell there was anything actually wrong. And what I did is I hummed, I vibrated, and I just could not help. It was like waves of humming frequencies right through my entire body. And it's funny because I've often not told that story. I just, I didn't think about it until, now I do, but it's something that because I had other things I was doing as well. So it's hard to, you can't say, oh, this thing, that, whatever, but without any training in it. And I do play or played a little bit music, but I have a hard, I can't repeat. I've been told, oh, don't you sing because you can't follow a melody, which is possibly true. I can't hear it that way, but I can sing my own songs. I create my own things because then it's coming straight from me. So I realize that it has such deep healing, to be able to allow your body to fully vibrate, so yeah, do you have anything more to explain that phenomenon?
Well, it's right back at the frequencies, right? You intuitively knew, obviously, what kind of frequency your body needed, because I'm sure you know about Royal Raymond Rife. Do you know of him with the cancer?
No, I haven't done any research on that. So please, okay. Educate us.
So Royal Raymond Rife was back in the 30s. He used frequencies to actually, I hate to use the word explode, but to disintegrate, I guess is another word, although the stuff was still there, cancer cells. And it was really quite miraculous. He he used this special machine, and I think they used bars at the time that they held on,
Oh,
but it was
Rife.
frequency.
R-E-I-F, Rife?
R-I-F-E, Rife.
Yes,
Royal,
Rife. Okay, yes. Okay, I'm sorry,
right?
yes.
So they used those, and it would actually disintegrate the cancer cells, or reassemble them or something. Anyway, you didn't have a problem anymore. So I think, my guess, my intuitive feeling is that probably that's what you were doing on a deeply personal level, because whatever frequency you needed, thank goodness you were able to tap into that, just knowing, just feeling and doing that. And whatever else you were doing, that would only magnify it. Yeah. So if you were doing nutrition, if you were cutting out all animal products or whatever it is you were doing in terms of nutrition, cutting out sugar, because of course that's a huge cancer feeder, whatever else you do, by adding the frequency, you're just like magnifying the good that you're doing otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I was at that time, a licensed naturopathic doctor, right? So I already knew all kinds of things that helpful, and the ones I chose were homeopathy, because it made a lot of intuitive sense to me, and I had also seen lots of results in my own practice. And the other thing, I did Bowen therapy, receiving treatments, and what I have noticed, though, those are the main two things, other than internal, which is not to be diminished, looking at what were my stressors in my life, of course, because that has to be a thing. But vibrational connection has been really big. And when I teach now students how to do this work, I didn't realize until quite recently that not everyone hears frequencies.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's like it's a gift, because when I touch a body, I can feel them. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So
do you see sometimes color?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big part for me. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the hear, like, it's almost, when you gave that example of your hands being taken over, it's like, it's, it's funny. I've not had an opportunity to really discuss this before. So when I read, your what you're talking about, I thought, oh my goodness, I can ask so many questions. And
so when you do homeopathy, when you offer that, isn't that also kind of a frequency?
It is a frequency.
Really more the frequency of the stressor or the irritant.
You're matching the whole person picture to a remedy that is similar, so that the body mounts a reaction,
right,
and then goes back into order. But it is a frequency that goes through water, right, and through through our fascia, through our interstitial fluid, through all of that. So and we are so much water, so of course that's our communication system.
Sure.
And I imagine that same thing with vibration. It's in that it plays. The frequency must be playing at that level. That's all I can feel. But I've not pursued any deeper knowledge on this, or deeper understanding.
I can offer from my work as a vibroacoustic therapist and a vibroacoustic harp therapist.
Yes.
So as I play for people, I'll go right to the harp vibroacoustic. So what I do is I put people on a bed that has 4 transducers in it.
Hi, this is a small commercial break, and for you to let me know that you're enjoying these conversations, please go 1, to subscribe to my podcast. Number 2, write a review, because if you write a review on iTunes, more people know about this, and I can help spread the work, my work, but the work of everyone else I'm interviewing. And number 3, please sign up to my tips for your healing journey. And you can do that under www.drmanonbolliger.com/tips. Thank you.
And the transducers conduct the sound from either my harp or recorded frequencies. I prefer using the harp because then I can monitor the client and see how they're responding, and then I can adjust the music accordingly. But it's really interesting to see how those frequencies, because we work in the lower frequencies, 30 to 120 hertz. When we're working in those low frequencies, that's setting up a resonance. And because you mentioned about water, then that's what it's sending it through. Yeah, think about dropping a pebble into a pond and those waves go out. The same with a sound, with a sound wave, it does the same thing. It goes into the water of our body and all the cells, and it expands. And even if the transducer is just, say, hitting behind the back of the leg, that frequency goes through. And I can tell from the client and their feedback, okay, do we need more? Do we need less? Do we need a lower note? Can we put something higher? And it all feeds back in frequencies. Everything is about what is making them feel comfortable, what is making them, and sometimes it's a twinge or it's something that sets off a little bit of a pain or whatever, and that's because we know we've hit what we need to hit to help. Yeah.
Huh. So is there any that you're aware of? I mean, again, research usually comes much later. To me, practice is, if you see it over and over again, you start to understand that the work works.
Yeah.
But is there any research that you've come across that might explain this phenomenon?
Of how it works? Well, there's a lot of research on vibroacoustic therapy. I do know that because I teach a course in that. There's huge amounts from Dr. Lee Bartel in Toronto, Canada. He works with Dr. Lily Nagdi and I can't remember the other lady's name, Wilfred Laurier, and they've done work on Alzheimer's and vibroacoustic therapy. So they're using 40 hertz, and the client is actually on the bed. Now they add music usually as well because it helps an Alzheimer's patient relax, you know, the familiar music, but then it also has just the vibroacoustic. And they've found that they've been able to reverse, which is a very cool thing, reverse some of the symptoms of the Alzheimer's. So the agitation, they've been able to improve memory, you know, cognition, just with 40 hertz vibration. I mean, that's incredible. Why that works, I haven't seen anything that tells me why. Lots of research on that it works. Pain reduction, lots of pain reduction. Fibromyalgia responds very well to it. I think because of the emotional component with the music and the vibration, I think that's a big deal for fibromyalgia. But yeah, there are many places that it works. Why it works, we're kind of just watching, you know, because it's not something you can do a double-blind placebo effect, you know, to replicate that exact situation. It's really hard to know what it is that the causality, I guess, is what we're struggling with.
Yeah, no, and I think it is difficult sometimes to find out how to do the research on this, because in what I do as well with bone therapy, I mean, the results are there, but it's really, it's very hard to figure out how to run the research to include all the factors that are in the interplay to be able to make any statements. So I was curious about this. But if you, after our interview, if you have a few, what do you call it, references, you know, for people, then I'll definitely add it below for people who are listening to this and are fascinated and maybe want to know a bit more, or also your own course. You know, you can give us a link for people, you know, that feel that this speaks to them, because I think it's fascinating. So go on, sorry.
Oh no, to me, sound, what it does to us, I have to, maybe your listeners would be interested in this. What kind of a reaction do you have when there's a terrible noise, like a leaf blower, or they're my worst, or a car beside you when you're at the light and there's like a they don't call it rap anymore. What do they call it? Hip hop. And that deep bass is going boom, 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 boom. think of what that does to you. How does that make you feel?
Mhm.
When you just think about that, then you have to think, okay, what's the opposite? So if you feel that negative, that maybe anxious, and you might not even know why you're feeling anxious, but then if you stop and you listen and you go, oh, that's what's making me feel anxious and maybe a little bit angry. And then you can think about, okay, how do I counteract that? That's a big thing that I recommend to people, because our bodies, we're vibrating all the time. So we are so susceptible to whatever is causing dissonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's that dissonance, and I don't know that it's the same for everyone. I mean, the leaf blower maybe, you know, but some musics that to me irritate me to no end, and I'm very sensitive, so there's some that I cannot be around, or the quality of even like the mics or music played out of a radio tin box that's not high quality. It doesn't matter if it's classical music or hip hop or whatever, it doesn't matter. I can't stand it. I'm like, it just irks me so profoundly. But I
You're
think
obviously very sensitive to the frequency.
yeah, exactly. And I think it's true that we don't always appreciate that. Some people have television in their house constantly, and you think about what impact that would have on the children who didn't choose it, who are brought up with a constant level of noise and frequency interference, so it's if you look at sound, I think it's a huge part of us that we don't fully acknowledge all the time.
For Alzheimer's, because that's really what I'm focusing my work on nowadays, especially with my mom just passed away with dementia December 29th. And she's the reason I went in this direction, working with Alzheimer's and dementia. But one of the big factors that can contribute to the likelihood of you developing adult dementia is your sonic background. People who live near freeways, now there are two things going on there. There's the toxins from the fumes, but there's also the sound, because there is research, and I have tons of research about sound and how it can affect the mind over time, how it can affect the body, and that affects, it causes inflammation, it causes all kinds of things. So that is a huge contributor, and people don't even, it's one of the last things people think about when they think about brain health. But the frequencies, the sounds that we're surrounded by can really trigger, this horrible condition. It's just one of those things that would be relatively easy to fix if you knew that it was a factor.
Right. And what about like the white noise? And or I know we had once a light bulb, and I could just feel I can't have that light bulb here, And like, what can you speak to that a little bit? Like
that's partly noise, but that's also the EMF. Yes, right. EMF is a huge thing, especially if they're those fluorescent.
Right.
Those
are
really bad.
Yeah,
not good. I can't be around them. I cannot have them in my home. I can't have them at all. It gives me a blinding headache to have them. Yeah. LEDs aren't that much better, but they are better. But yeah, it's more the EMF, I think, but it's also that's sending a frequency, electromagnetic frequency. So that is what is that's, and that is another thing that can affect, and they actually have done research on using infrared light, far infrared and infrared light to treat Alzheimer's. And they have a blue light. They have a helmet kind of thing that sends 30 or 40 hertz in the ears, the sound, like a frequency tone, and the blue light going up through the nostril so it gets through into the brain. Those frequencies together work to actually reverse the effects, some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's. That's the guy in Toronto doing that.
Mm.
He's got a lot of, I can send you the link to that if you'd like to know.
Yeah, no, I think, my goal here is to interview people doing also things that people may not know about, and, get to meet you and have discussions, and also if there's anything else they can follow up on. But the name of the person you mentioned, was it Lee
Bartel, Bartel is the fellow with vibroacoustic there. And I would be happy to send you.
Yeah, no, send us after the interview and we'll put it up. So,
yeah, because
great.
there's so much research on all of these things, and it's so sad that when you hear people talk, like if you went to the doctor with your mom or your dad or your grandpa, and they were given a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia, and you would say, what can I do? Well, we can give you this pill, but it'll slow things down a bit. They're very seldom told that there are other ways of dealing with this, that you can actually reverse this.
Yeah.
So especially if you catch it early, and a lot of people are afraid to go because they don't want to lose their license, or they don't want to, there's a stigma attached.
Of course.
But if we go early enough and we catch it, well, all the things that I talk about preventing dementia also helps reverse it. So whether it's blue light therapy, vibroacoustic therapy, whether it's a whole foods, plant-based diet, exercise, sleep, all of those things together, they can all help us. But, and sound is a huge, huge part of that. Music is huge. Dancing. Oh my gosh. Dancing is one of the best things you can do for your health generally, but for your brain, it's really good. You know why? Because we're doing complicated steps.
Right.
That puts a different part of our brain into gear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's like learning a new language, except it's with your body.
Yeah, learning a language is a good thing too. Learning to play an instrument, dancing, learning a new language, all of those things are amazing for helping prevent dementia, but also to help slow it down after there's any kind of a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, interesting. I was going to ask you a little bit now about, so you're a vegan yourself, and and how long have you been, and what have you seen as helpful, or is that part of what you recommend people to, a diet you recommend they follow?
Oh yes, especially for anything that has to do with inflammation, because I was a vegan in 1989, I went vegan. Back then, we didn't have the access to the information we have now. And I became a very sick vegan because I did not know how to, where all the nutrients were coming from. And back then, it was, even in California, where I was living at the time, it was difficult to find places where you could get anything other than a salad and a baked potato. Well, that doesn't give you the nutrients you need. And I was working basically 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I got really, really sick. So I had to go back, and I became more vegetarian. And I realized over the years that cheese was not my friend. Cheese is not good. And now that I've done so much research in the last 10 years since my mom was diagnosed, I realize that is probably one of the worst things you can eat for inflammation and for diabetes, oddly enough. And of course, diabetes is one of the huge impacts, huge risk factors for developing dementia and Alzheimer's. So yes, vegan because whole foods, and as much organic as you can, because there's so much bad stuff in the sprays and everything. We know that it's carcinogenic and all those things. So I recommend, if possible, and I know it's not possible all the time, because firstly, it's hard to find everywhere. Even here in Ecuador, I live where there's, ample produce everywhere, but it's a little bit of a challenge to get organic all the time. So now I'm just building a garden. I'm so excited. I'm going to grow my own. But the ants like it too. But yes, absolutely, a vegan diet is highly recommended for Alzheimer's, and also to cut out grains, things that cause anything that causes inflammation. So a lot of grains, and I don't know whether that's because so many of them are GMO or glyphosate, or whether it's just the grain itself. But I've read enough research and learned enough about it that try to stay away from it myself completely, but I recommend it also to my clients. What has it done for me? Man, I'm 62 years old. I have more energy and stamina now than I did when I was 40. Absolutely. I was 32 when I became a vegan the first time. And I switched to vegetarianism a few years ago. And then 2 years ago, I became strictly vegan again. I could just see that all of these other things weren't working. And here we are in Ecuador on the coast where there's seafood everywhere. But it wasn't working either. I just couldn't do it. Plus the whole animal rights, and I can't handle that whole thing. So I just I feel amazing, really good, and I sleep better. I'm like, my husband is only 5 years older than me, and I tease him. He's like he's 20 years older because he I just go. I love it. I'm happy. I exercise a lot, though. That's another big thing, though. With it, I swim every day for at least 45 minutes. And I walk. We have a little rescue puppy here that I've had to walk, and it's good. It's good because I get out on the beach twice a day and I walk the puppy. So exercise and a vegan diet, yes.
Yeah. So what were the main mistakes that you made because of that time it was not well known?
Yeah, so a lot of bread. And now that I know what I know, that was not a good thing.
Yeah.
And pasta, because then I could put just oil on it, and I would put some basil and tomatoes, but there were basically nutrients, like except for the basil and the tomatoes, there wasn't a whole lot of nutrition there. So I think the wheat, all of the grains. Yeah. And I didn't know about how to mix the beans and the rice and everything. And I really didn't know anything about legumes. I knew nothing about them. I didn't know how to cook them. I once in a while I put a can of chickpeas on a salad and that was it. So you really have to think when you go this way. You really have to be conscious of what vitamins you're getting. And B12 is difficult when you're vegan. So you do need to supplement some things. You need some omega-3s and you need some B12. Otherwise you're going to run out a little bit. So I do those supplements. But other than that, it's really conscious of protein isn't an issue. People say, oh, where do you get your protein as a vegan? But there's protein in all kinds of stuff, like leafy greens, lots of fruits and vegetables of all kinds. White potatoes, not so much, but it's not going to kill you. More color, the better, right? I just tell people, make it colorful, make it purple and orange and, whatever colors you can get in there.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good points. What happens though if people can't do legumes? Because there's a lot of people who cannot because it causes inflammation, and nerve damage, and quite a few people. So what do you then recommend? I realize that obviously other things have protein, but what would you substitute, or have you come up with anything?
Fortunately, I haven't run into any of my clients that have that problem. We've been able to work through it. But I would imagine that you just have to really double up on. But again, you've got problems with calories, because you still need enough calories, yes? Right. So if you're not getting them from beans and lentils and those sorts of things, it's going to be hard to get enough calories. I would have to think about that. I would have to sit down and really do some research, because I just haven't had that come up in my practice as a nutritionist. Yeah.
Interesting.
But if I figure something out, I'll be sure to let you know.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And one more question, because our time is coming. This is completely different, but how is this whole COVID situation you're in Ecuador, you said?
Yes. Oh boy.
What's happening there?
So they tried to take a very proactive stance, because it's a poor country. This is not a wealthy country by any stretch of the imagination. And they simply do not have the resources to look after a lot of sick people. Unfortunately, somebody came in from Spain, returning Ecuadorian, and she was infected, and that just started the whole thing in Guayaquil, which is the biggest city. And a lot of people have asked me, oh, you're close to Guayaquil. Are you like, had bodies on the streets, or people were hearing stories about bodies on the streets and stuff. So in that big city, it was a bit of a problem because they also did a big lockdown right off the hog. So cars were only allowed to drive 1 day a week, according to your license plate. We had a curfew from 2 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
No restaurants, nothing like that open. The only thing that was really open were grocery stores and some of the markets. So in places where there weren't regular stores, they allowed the mercados to open. Mm-hmm. So it was a real hardship, and we have a lot of very hungry people here now because of it, mm-hmm. because they have not been able to work. When they make, they would be out on the streets, they sell shoelaces or whatever, and they make their $10 or $15 a day. Well, they couldn't do that. So we have a lot of hungry people. So I'm actually working with a lady here, an Ecuadorian lady, that we've been raising money and helping to feed some of the people in our neck of the woods. But it's difficult. Yeah, and a lot of the country is still in a form of lockdown. Our curfew is only lifted till 6 p.m., from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. So it's still hard to get things done, and most of the restaurants aren't open. I own a retreat center here. So I got to tell you, this is really hard for business because we have nobody traveling, and tourism is a big part of Ecuador's business.
Right. Yeah.
So it's going to take a while to recover, but I have great faith in my new countrymen, and I know that they are resilient, and we will get through this together.
Mm-hmm. And what role do you feel like that health and good immunity plays in this?
Immune system is everything. I get so, I guess annoyed is the word, to hear people keep saying, oh, we got to have a vaccine. We got to have a vaccine. I'm like, no, you have to look after your immune system, eat good food, get fresh air, exercise, do some mindfulness techniques, stress reduction. Those are the things that will boost your immune system. And I think that having people locked up and people sitting on the couch, eating all day is not going to help. It's the immune system. Anything that builds your immune system is going to help against this and make people, we know that a lot of the people who've succumbed to it were overweight, diabetic, had some kind of lung issues, or of course were aged. But that tells you pretty well what we have to do to fix it. Yeah.
Right. That seems obvious. Yeah, no. But so, and is the health of the general population of Ecuador good, or have they succumbed to the, American ways? Is there junk food everywhere? Like, what is it like for people there?
Well, when you're in the Sierras, when you're in the highlands, the health is much better. They are not so junk food addicted. Mm-hmm. Here on the coast, it's a bit of a problem because it's a lot of tourism, and there are a lot of expats living here, a lot of immigrants from North America and Europe. Mm-hmm. So with all of that has come Coca-Cola and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the Ecuadorian people love Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was the only stand left open in the mall where people could get takeout. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken. So it is an issue, and diabetes is becoming a real issue here. It never was before, but it is now. But the staple diet of most Ecuadorians is rice and beans and lots of vegetables. So until this nonsense with the North Americanization of the food system happened, they were much healthier. And the rate of Alzheimer's here, very low, it's like 147th in the world because of the diet. But that's not going to stay that way because the diet is changing, just like so many other indigenous areas. Yeah. Our colonialization has not done them any favors.
Mm-hmm. And how much trust do people have in this vaccine solution?
Here? Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on whether you're talking to Americans or whether you're talking to Ecuadorians.
Ecuadorian.
Americans are just waiting for that magic vaccine. The Ecuadorians are pretty suspicious. They're kind of suspicious of government's initiatives generally, because like so many South American countries, it has a history of, you know,
Taken over.
yeah, and Ecuador has been relatively nonviolent. That's why we chose to live here, because it hasn't had a history of a lot of violence, but it does have a history of, you know, corruption. You know, you get all the jokes about it, but it's true. And so the Ecuadorian people don't have a lot of faith in things that come on high, from on high. Right. So that might be a good thing, because they will, when a bridge washes out in the mountains, it's the people who build it up again. It's not the government.
Right.
You know, the people do their ropes and they fix it. So that tells you just about all you need to know.
Yeah, it's a very graphic reflection, but no, that's what I was thinking is, you know, and it's interesting because I live in Canada, and it's mixed, you know, and in the States, it's also mixed. I mean, there are people, you know, looking at it, of course, and going, now this, you know, especially if the vaccine has a retrovirus in it, you know, it's like, well, you know, they've worked on it for 30 years. How come now they're going to find the magic solution just in time, you know? So, you know, I think people are waking up to questioning, you know, what the status quo is. So it's a time for huge potential change, as well, an opportunity for more people to question things, you know. But we're definitely not in a culture that has a lot of critical thinking or that questions things. And, you know, many of my European friends who, especially if they've been in areas that are that they're used to government control, or they came from Russia, or they came from China, or they're like, clear, no way, you know. And it's interesting to or Polish friends, you know, I think I think if you've experienced something before like this, you're a little more, you know, precautious or conscious, and, you know, you ask more questions, you know. So that's why I was curious in Ecuador.
Yeah. My dad is German. He was born in Germany, and my grandmother, who's been gone many years now, but she always said to my cousins and I, "You watch, Katie, you watch. They come back and they be the same." She was so adamant that what had happened when she was a young woman would happen again. And she was absolutely distrustful of any kind of like politician or government control of anything. So I grew up with that. So I guess that's why I'm so much the way I am, because I figure we know best for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it's a choice. You know,
we know best.
Yeah, and that's it. And who's to a government to tell us what goes in our bodies doesn't make sense to me on any level. It just does not, you know. And yeah, who knows? You know, that's.
I think maybe, and you probably, because you're in North America, that this idea of this control that they're talking about so much, do you think it's helping with those of us who do alternative therapies? Because I'm getting a lot more people contacting me now about stuff, about even taking the training for the sound therapy, because they're getting more suspicious, I guess, of the status quo. Do you find that there?
Well, no, I think I feel that is what's happening, and not in like now I have closed my practice, but I run Bowen College, so I teach a hands-on therapy, which is the one thing in our social distancing that we can't do. So don't ask me how they're doing. I'm in touch with you know, with them, you know, somewhat regularly, and it's very frustrating because, you know, if you know that something can help, and we're actually not allowed to say the immune system, we're not allowed to say anything that could help COVID-19, right? So even if, you know, we have 30 years or plus experience helping people's immune system, we literally have a gag order. So it's very interesting, this situation. But I think what it is doing is making people go, well, why is it not in the open? Why can't we talk? Why can't, you know? And who knows? I mean, this show could get put down too, because I ask questions, you know? So, but hey, you know, on some level, we have to have conversations. Otherwise, it's like, and I don't know the answers of all things, but I can share how I came to have my vision of things, just as you have. And I think we need to wake people up to just share it. I mean, we are not responsible for them or people seeing this, but the right time, the right place, it may make somebody wonder, maybe there's another solution. And I think it's in
because if they don't have any exposure to it, they don't even have the chance to make that decision.
Exactly. And some people find their path, but we can accelerate it. And I think this, in some weird ways, has accelerated it. People are now wondering.
I think so too. I think so too. It's just, I'm really getting a lot more people interested, and even talking about the Alzheimer's. They're like, okay, so maybe there is something besides Aricept.
Yep, possibly so. Anyway, listen, we're well over our time, but it's been so lovely having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you and everything you have to share, and then definitely send us links and information that we can also place when this goes live.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.